Welcome to Sisters and Law. My name is Judge Tee, and I'm here with my co-host,
Rosalyn Charles.
My co-host is going to start out with a word. I think this one is actually from Trump himself.
Yes, I think that it's very appropriate that we look at the 45th's own words. And as you may know, that back in 1987, he wrote a really amazing and a really terrific book.
I'm sure you all read it. I'm sure you all read it.
Called The Art of the Deal. And one of the quotes within that book, you can't con people, at least not for long. You can create excitement, you can do wonderful promotion, and get all kinds of press. And you can throw in a little hyperbole, but if you don't deliver the goods, people will eventually catch on.
That is a drop the mic. After that, I think he really knew, if I can say, he was he could see in the future.
Yes, he could.
Of his own situation.
Because has he been conning people over the course of I guess over the course of his campaign? I wouldn't say he's been conning people. Has he been conning people?
Well, you know what? This is a man who said that
he
was going to do more
hyperbole?
winning than you could ever be, that anybody can stand, that on day one he had all of these things that he was going to do.
Has he delivered the goods?
He has not.
On day one, I believe his quote was, "We are going to deal with the Affordable Care Act." But we have so much to talk about because
we're going to start off with how the week started off. Our week started off with the investigation. Well, actually, the hearings with the CIA and in the NSA. And remember, I told you last week when the hearing started. Don't listen. I want you to listen to everything, but keep your ears open, not so much to what they say, but what they don't say. And if you were watching, I'm sure you understood why I made that comment.
What did they say?
Well,
most importantly, what did they say?
What they did say, and even though the 45th still will not confess, is that President Obama absolutely could not have tapped Trump Towers. They both said absolutely. Now, even until this morning.
When you say both, you're talking about Comey and the gentleman who's the head of the NSA.
Exactly.
Okay.
The NSA and the FBI have affirmatively said that not only did President Obama not tap the Trump Tower, but he does not have the power. See, we think that presidents have just unfeathered power.
Right,
they do not.
That's what they did say. And you know what? What didn't they say?
Now, they did say
and that would
be
Comey. That's the FBI.
The FBI.
They're conducting this investigation.
We have the FBI, the CIA, Main Justice, and what their jobs are to do is to do surveillance. Now, we talked about, one of the things that we talked about is the surveillance that they do. It's called a 702 surveillance. We didn't really talk about what it was called. Mm-hmm. Now, whenever we did talk a little bit about FISA court.
Right.
Now, we said what the FISA court does. Whenever they have something and what they call a person that comes in on a wiretapping, a legal wiretapping,
right,
that is found out to be an American citizen, they must stop that listening,
yes,
and then go to the FISA court to get permission and whether they can continue to listen.
So that they minimize, meaning that they have to stop the tape, and then if it's an American citizen, you're saying that they have to get permission from a higher court, or at least from someone, in order to listen in. So what did they say? What did they say?
The one thing, I mean...
you want to go? Okay.
One thing that's funny,
I know there's a lead up.
The funny thing about that is, in order for you to know whether the information is information you should purge means you should erase,
yeah,
you have to first listen to the information.
Of course. Well, they listen anyway, but the question is, can they maintain?
They can't use it.
Can they use it, or can they keep it? But I've gotten the impression that they've kept some of the information, meaning the people who have been doing these investigations or surveillance. Well, what I found interesting, what they did say, is that they are conducting an investigation.
They are conducting an investigation
into the Russian ties with the Trump campaign.
And it's you know, and this is something that we as Americans need to understand. I mean, like I said, we laughed and joked all through this hilariousness of this man being the president, but it's really not a joke. The one thing that he kept saying during the campaign trail is, why would you choose Hillary Clinton? Is a very likelihood that she's going to be investigated while in office. Well, who is in an investigation now?
Hillary's not under investigation of any sort. For some reason, all those rumors of investigation and all those actual alleged investigations, they just
have
kind of
gone
went
away.
Because
gone away.
But now he is elected, and we're right in the
middle investigations
of series of international magnitude.
Well, we know, on the chart that I'd given you a couple of weeks ago, at least 12 people connected to Trump or within the Trump campaign and now in his administration had direct connections or indirect connections with Russia. So now this is like unheard of.
So the ties themselves is not necessarily the issue. It's whether or not they colluded in some way to infiltrate the American election system.
That's correct.
Okay.
But one of the things that we talked about before is, remember I explained to you, ladies and gentlemen, probably like the first or second show, what the emoluments clause only needs to be the appearance of an impropriety. Now, what does that matter? Mm-hmm. Again, we have our head of the commission, Wilbur Ross,
the Commerce Department.
Okay. Used to be head of Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank is also the biggest lender to Donald Trump. So he owes that bank about $62 million.
I think it's $300 million. There's
$300 million.
There's another bank that's a Cyprus bank. It's all bad. It's all lots of money. But all possibilities where the president could be, if you will, influenced on some level.
But the thing about Cyprus Bank is a bank right outside of Syria, outside of Russia, mm-hmm. where the Russian oligarchs, that's the Russian mob, that's where they launder their money. Well, our president, the 45th, has money in that bank too.
Isn't Deutsche being fined for money laundering?
$650 million
by the United States.
Under the Obama administration. Okay. Deutsche Bank. Now, but you would take the president of that bank and make him head of commerce.
Of course.
Now, that's
logical.
Who would benefit the most? But the two banks that you have connections with, that you owe money to, you give the head of that bank a job overseeing banking. That's what the Commerce does. They oversee the banking in the United States.
Yeah, the intertangling of how business is transacted across state lines as well as, I guess, international lines on some level. Okay.
Some of those people that are also big money into Cyprus Bank, mm-hmm. One, as we spoke of before, has bought a major piece of property from Donald Trump.
Now, you took the time and you made all of these connections mm-hmm. between various entities as well as various individuals and the Trump campaign as well as the administration itself. Well, and yet I thought it was very interesting the way the hearings on Monday were open, because Schiff, who happens to be a Democrat, basically gave an opening statement.
Right.
And when I talk in terms of a trial, he put the president on trial, and he talked about all of the coincidences. And
there's coincidences, and then at some point things can't be a coincidence.
But I think in specifically he referred to them as circumstantial evidence. Now, how is that significant to us as lawyers?
You know, we remember we used to give this one little scenario about the snow falling.
Yes.
If you go to bed at night and the ground is dry and you wake up in the morning, it's not snowing, but there's snow on the ground.
You didn't see it happen.
You didn't see it happen, but circumstantially, you could assume that it snowed last night.
So you can deduce.
If you're watching it snow, and the snow before you went to bed, and you went to bed and it's 10 feet of snow, well, it's direct evidence because before you went to bed,
right.
It was snowing last night.
So
So the fact that now we're saying that there is no connection with the Russians and Trump, at least he wants us to believe there's no connection with Trump, but then we're going to take what Roger Stone said while he was on the campaign working for Trump as a Trump advisor. When the WikiLeaks first dropped, Roger Stone said, in a few weeks, John Podesta better watch out, because there's going to be a dump concerning Podesta. Now, you can be, say, coincidence, and there is
that might even be circumstantial.
Hundreds of thousands of information that these people are getting
Let's
online.
remind our viewers that the guy from WikiLeaks has been known to work with Russia.
Yes.
And somehow or another, Roger Stone is aware of how...
They're friends.
Oh!
They're friends. They actually...
Another piece of coincidence.
Coincidence.
Another aspect of a circumstantial case. Now, I was a former prosecutor. You're a former defense attorney. You know that when you ran up against a circumstantial case, that oftentimes it was considered that circumstantial evidence is much more powerful than direct evidence.
And so when you have 12 people connected to this administration, that many of them did not come on board with Donald Trump until he became what was going to be the Republican candidate.
Well,
because people didn't believe that,
right.
And let's be honest, no one believed that he would win.
But, let's not get completely ahead of ourselves, because it seems that we believe that there's a strong circumstantial case for the involvement of the Trump campaign, and now we have the Trump administration.
Well, we have three people
right.
who have lawyered up.
But there's been no trial.
But
the investigation hasn't even concluded.
But when you lawyer up, you lawyer up for a reason.
So
Manafort, Roger Stone, and Carter Page have voluntarily, with their attorneys...
Well, we're attorneys. And, of course, we would not advise any of our clients to go speak with
unless
an FBI.
I wanted some immunity. Then, in other words, I have some information that I will tell you.
But if you're not guilty of anything, why would you need an attorney?
Oh, because they know they're going to get a subpoena. So there's a lot of subpoenas about to drop.
I would never ask any of my clients whether they guilty or innocent to go speak to any kind of investigative
As a defense
body
attorney,
without an attorney.
There's absolutely no reason why I would allow a client. It's up to the prosecution to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. The defense attorney actually never has to do anything. They don't have to do anything but introduce themselves.
Would you even, as a defense attorney, would you even advise your client to go speak to an investigative body like this,
especially,
like FBI?
Let me tell you, this is how
I never want my clients to speak to
This is how
to
particular I was when I was a defense attorney. If I went to visit one of my clients and let's say they were in jail, I did not use a public defender business card. I went out and had personal business cards done in black with gold letterings. Why? Because the state seal that's on a public defender's card looks just like the state seal on a prosecutor's card.
Okay.
And many times, and I'm not saying you, Sora, but many times an investigator, could be from the prosecutor, would come in and say, oh, the attorney asked us to come and talk to you.
Right.
You're in jail. You don't know whether it's your attorney sending someone or the prosecutors investigating coming. All they know is that they're investigators. But one of the things that you do not do under any circumstances is talk to anyone without your attorney present.
So the question becomes, why don't you speak to law enforcement without your attorney being present?
Can be used against you.
But can anything you say be used against you when you answer with your attorney present? Because essentially you waived your right.
Actually,
you waived your right at that
a good attorney
point.
is going to tell you yes or no whether you should answer a question.
Exactly. And that's the reason why they're going with their attorneys, so their attorney can be that second mind to say, oh, hold up right here. Don't answer that question.
But if they have a good attorney, they will have already gone down the number of questions, the possible questions. Every good attorney knows what to ask before they ask, because they know what the answer is going to be. So 9 times out of 10, if the internal, entities who's ever doing this interview, whether it be the FBI, the CIA, Main Justice, whoever is doing it, or if they're doing it as a collective body.
Right.
If you are the subject of an investigation, it is quite clear they're going to read you your rights. Your attorney should have explained line for line
what those rights
and
mean.
in fact, when they read your rights, and this is something that any of you, if you find that your family members or someone is arrested, that they are numbered, each question. And this is how precise it has gotten. You have to initial that you've read each one of your rights, and then at the bottom, you have to sign that you have read it, you understood it, and you still wish to go forward with any question.
All right, so within the context of these interviews that probably will take place with, I guess, the Roger Stone, I think he wants to have his public.
Yes.
With, who else is going? Manafort.
Roger Stone, Manafort.
And
Carter Page.
Okay.
Now, the difference in Manafort actually was the one who put on Trump's Republican, the RNC celebration, so to speak, during the campaign. Roger Stone was just a advisor,
right. Mm-hmm.
And Carter Page was just an advisor. Mm-hmm. Now, based on information that was read, Roger Stone is who bought Manafort. Now, Manafort, who is now our Secretary of State, is not someone who was in... Tillerson, excuse me.
Right.
Tillerson, who Roger Stone bought Tillerson,
right.
Who is our Secretary of State.
Right.
Now, based on and many of you can go back into your many pieces of information. But what you see, even though Trump's tried to deny it, that he even knew Roger Stone. Mm-hmm. You know, the media, you call them the lying media, you say that they're fake, but pictures don't lie. They went back and found a video of Roger Stone before he even married Melania.
Oh, the 45th doesn't know Roger Stone.
And Roger Stone is sitting right next to Melania while he's giving a speech. So now Roger Stone, like I said, introduced Trump to who is now our Secretary of State, Tillerson. Okay. Tillerson, originally, he wasn't even going to go to the to NATO.
He was going to go see Putin.
He was going to go to Moscow. Now, there has been such an uproar about that. Now he's going to go to NATO. And I think Trump is actually going to go to NATO also.
Right. So the point is, I guess, is that people have lawyered up. They are going to, I guess, speak with an investigative body. Their lawyers are going to tell them not necessarily what to say, but when to stop saying it. And they better be careful in what they do, in fact, say, meaning those three individuals, because when you speak to a law enforcement agency, particularly a federal agency, you can get ultimately caught up for lying. Well, and that could be what actually takes you down.
Talk about what Nunes did.
Now also, have you ever seen anything? It's a bipartisan committee that's supposed to be separate and apart from the White House, and during the course of that investigation, Nunes allegedly gets some leaked information, maybe, nobody's seen it, and he feels like he needs to run off.
But he doesn't tell anybody. Now, this is this example that I'll use for you. I am a defense attorney.
I'm a prosecutor.
Okay. We've
I'm
been
prosecuting a murder.
Polar side. But we're sorors and we're friends.
Yeah.
But now, her investigator finds out some information that would be damning to my client. Now, what is the likelihood that she is going to tell me that her investigator found information that might hurt my client? It just doesn't make any sense. Nunes's job is to be the neutral party to be able to investigate the president.
Well, he apologized, didn't he?
But you don't apologize if you've already gone and told the information. And there has to be an independent investigatory committee to now do this investigation, because he's now tainted himself.
Well, he's tainted it, and traditionally the House Intelligence Committee has maintained a certain amount of bipartisanship. It's clear that in this particular case that it's not bipartisan. Even if you listen to Schiff's opening statement, you will. He was very conclusionary when it came to the 45th. Not that I can't say that I would not have reached the same conclusions, but it doesn't seem like there is some independence there, and they've called for an independent body to take on.
I think with Nunes's actions that there needs to be an independent body,
right.
Because you've already. I mean, he's not just tainted himself; he's tainted the whole committee, because now he has information that other people in the committee do not have.
Yeah. Yeah, well, what is the House Intelligence Committee? Basically, is a committee that oversees all of the other intelligence agencies within the federal government.
They're the only only body within the government that actually gets info from our intelligence agencies. It's this body of Republicans and Democrats. They can't tell the whole House of Representatives.
Let's make it clear, and it appeared somewhat differently if you were listening, or you could get a certain impression. The House Intelligence Committee is not conducting an investigation. It would appear that they are conducting an investigation alongside that with the FBI, but the FBI actually reports to them. The NSA actually reports to them.
Yes.
So there's no independent investigation that's going on.
But if it's found that some criminal act is arrived, then they have to tell that to the Attorney General.
Okay.
And we already know that the Attorney General, he can't even do anything with regards to Trump because he's had to recuse himself.
Of course.
I mean, how many people? I mean, we have Tillerson in the House. He's already in his position. Flynn had to resign from his position, and you have Jeff Sessions, who is the head of
the 45th.
He's the head of anybody who would get a subpoena or even be indicted. How would you indict yourself? How would you indict the man who's put you into office to make sure that he stays clear?
You know, we talk about the ramifications. Long term, how does this look? Long term for the country itself. How are we even able to move forward? How are we even able to govern? And speaking of governing, repeal and replace Obamacare. Speaking of governing,
7 years.
Yes, so
7 years. They want to act like they only had 60 days.
The Republicans in the White House. They control the Senate and they control the House. I just knew that they were going to be able to pull this off.
Well,
I thought they had a bill in their back pocket that they had been holding for the past 8 years, and then that bill was going to be whipped out and whipped through the House.
Common sense would have told you that's what they had. Because on the trail, every single stop, the one consistent thing that 45th kept saying is that we will immediately repeal and replace Obamacare.
My goodness.
Every single time.
Over the course of the week, we should have known that was not going to happen because it wasn't going to be called TrumpCare. They wanted to call it Ryan-Care.
What they forgot, the Republican Party has the last known as Tea Party, the Freedom Caucus. The Freedom Caucus is about 30 hard rights that have been saying no from the beginning. They were not going to be doing this.
They want to repeal completely?
Completely. They don't care about any replacement. Okay. They want to just repeal. And that's why they should have known that this was not going to go anywhere.
But did you get a look at the bill itself? That was the let 'em eat cake bill. Mm-hmm. It was like, forget the poor, hello to the rich. Who would have gotten behind that on any level? The messaging was, we love the rich and we hate the poor.
You know what?
The war on the poor is real.
It's really. I mean, this man has such. We can go back to the tweet that he made with regards to President Obama, but this man is so asphyxiated with President Obama. It's now President Obama's fault that the President Obama and the Democrats that this health care did not go through. He actually said that President Obama planned for 2017 as if he knew 7 years ago who was going to be running and who was going to win. Because remember, President Obama also knew when he was a baby that he was going to be president.
The 45th has said a lot of things about
said that
all we know, he's not taking responsibility.
He said the 17th year was going to.
He takes no responsibility. He doesn't come to the American people and say, "Listen, we need to try this again. It wasn't going to work this time." He just blames.
And you know what he said after it didn't? He's like, okay, I'm done with that. I'm on to the next. He didn't care, ladies and gentlemen. He did not care about health care from the beginning. He was on the side of abortion before he was against abortion. He was on the side of universal health care before he was against it. So nothing that this man said while he was on the trail, he went into these rural towns in middle America, mostly white, mostly poor, and told them what red meat he needed to throw out so they can just chomp on it. Something to give them some hope that things were going to change to their side.
With respect to the process, at least in terms of moving this bill the bill that never made it to Congress for any kind of vote, moving the repeal and replace movement, I think he looked upon it as a game. I think that Donald Trump, the 45th, is either thinks that everything is a business transaction and does not recognize that we're not dealing with real estate here. We're dealing with people's lives. Well, and so what he's done, so now he lost, so he's looking upon this as a deal that you can just say, well, you know, it didn't work out, so let's move on.
And he's trying to shift blame. Now, there's only one tweet this week that makes any difference, because you know he tweets every day. He tweeted that everybody should watch Judge Jeanine Pirro's show. Now, first of all, let me tell you, she's not a judge, okay? They gave her a show, stuck judge on it, and now they refer to her as judge. Someone who was a judge gets a little bit annoyed with everybody that you see on television, and they use judge tag as if somebody ever swore them as a judge.
But what did
Coincidentally, now he sends out this tweet. Out of all the shows, they can say, watch Fox, watch C-SPAN, watch anything. He says, watch Judge Pirro's show. And what she says is that Ryan should step down as Speaker of the House. Now, Trump says that he had no idea that she was going to say that.
Let's deal with the substance of what was indeed. I don't necessarily think that, one, I don't know anybody else that wants Ryan's job, but Ryan is the only one who came forward and, if you will, kind of manned up and said, hey, this wasn't going to work, and we'll try again later.
Well, I don't know why Ryan,
our president has said, let Obamacare explode.
Implode, yeah. Well, you know, Ryan was dead in the water before he came in, because, you know, right after the crotch grabbing incident, if the best I can clean that one up. But, Ryan said under no circumstances would he publicly support the 45th. Now, you're Speaker of the House. He's the president. You can't go without some communication. But the other thing that we also know is that Darth Vader has always hated Ryan. From back in the Breitbart days. So this whole, bromance that they are putting on for the camera is really a bunch of nonsense. It's just like how people are dispensable. Just like Christie, dispensable.
Again, Obamacare, they were not in a position could not repeal and replace it.
They didn't have anything to repeal and replace. 7 years.
That's true. The Republican Party is a party that's fighting against itself. There are so many factions. I don't know that moving forward they're going to be able to advance any of the 45th's agenda because there's no consensus. No, I don't believe that they need to speak with one voice.
But what are they going to next? This man can't wait to get the taxes.
Oh, they say it's taxes.
Taxes. Who owes more taxes than anybody we know?
Owes or pays?
Well, we don't know. We don't have 14 years of his taxes been
he's
under disclosure. But who gets to appoint the head of commerce and the head of taxation for Trump? Now he gets to appoint the people that oversees his case.
Wilbur Ross he's the head of commerce. So he may be entangled.
Deutsche Bank but he's already in office, sitting in his office. This is not somebody. He's not like Flynn, who we know that his name may have been unmasked.
I predict that they're not going to be able to get tax reform through either. Not because whether they're good or bad ideas, not because the Republican Party can't govern. They have been the party of opposition for 8 years.
They have more fractions among the Republican Party than the Democrats.
All they've done for the past 8 years is throw stones. They have not picked up and written one piece of legislation, or at least joined in any kind of consensus with the Democrats to move forward. And I guess now the thing is the Democrats that are hold up. But they have a majority here.
One of the things that has never been done in the past, no matter how bad it was or how much egg went on President Obama's face, he manned up. Even with Bush II, he manned up. Okay, you gave bad information.
Let's not just make this about President
Bush
all presidents. They come to the American people whether they win or they lose, and they try to move on in a very positive fashion.
Donald Trump can't do that.
But Donald Trump essentially just declared political bankruptcy and said, let's just move on.
But the man cannot, if you're not going to take responsibility for those things that you do wrong, for those things that you do not accomplish, why do we think that he's going to do anything for the American people? He has not given you health care. He has not banned Muslims. He has not made this fence. All these things that he said he was going to.
Well, it's only been 70 days. It hasn't been 100 days.
But when he says, then he should have not, through the entire campaign,
Don't
said
we want him to be a success?
You know what? I do want the president.
Of course.
I live in this country.
Exactly.
I don't want our
and
president.
And I guess that's why we're talking.
That's why we need to have this conversation. Do I like Donald Trump? No. But is he the president of the United States?
Of course.
Unfortunately, yes. And if he fails, we fail. But the problem is he's not doing anything to curry any favor with anybody. He talks about the Republicans like they're dogs. He talks about our armed forces like they're dogs until he's in front of them. He talks about the judiciary like dogs.
Are you saying he's a punk?
He is a punk among punks. And he is, and the man, I go back to you, the reason why I say he's a psychopath, he's the narcissist. This is the absolute exemplification of a narcissist. The man exemplifies what narcissist is. He cannot say he is sorry. He cannot say that.
He cannot admit the
admit.
Well, no, he called up the New York Times and certain media outlets and said Obamacare is going to be the law of the land or something to that effect. Or we're about to move on.
He said that he pulled it. No, Ryan pulled it. It was Ryan's bill.
Of course.
And Ryan called the 45th and said, we do not have the votes.
Yes.
And then the 45th starts making phone calls. In fact, I forget the young guy on MSNBC. He said his cell phone rang and it was an unknown number. He said normally he wouldn't even answer an unknown number. But he called the reporter's personal phone and says, I'm pulling the bill.
He's just grandstanding. And
to say that. Well,
he's
guess how you get someone's phone number.
Well, surveillance.
Let me tell you, if it wasn't so scary, you would laugh. But the fact is, this is some serious infractions that is coming upon this White House, and what affects him affects us. If he's under investigation for the next 4 years, this government is not going to be able to work.
Not at all. Well,
it's just so much. I mean, there's so many things that we've talked about. Oh, one of the things I remember I said I was going to tell you. Remember last week, ladies and gentlemen, we were telling you about opioids, and that opioids are basically painkillers, and that there are 54 million deaths just in 2015 with opioid-induced overdoses. We were just watching TV. At least 4 commercials are telling you that opioids cause constipation. Now, that is, yes, we can laugh about it, but if Big Pharma is spending that much money just to tell you you're going to get constipated, but they can't tell you that you can get addicted to it. We're really in a catch-22 here. We cannot wish this man to fail like they did with President Obama. They wished President Obama to fail.
And he was a very successful president.
In fact, they said they were going to do nothing to assist him. And the first thing the Republican Party, and the first thing the 45th said is the reason why that this health care bill did not pass is because the Democrats failed to participate.
The minority party.
But he knew they weren't going to participate. He knew they did not participate the first time.
They didn't need to participate because the Republicans already
had the House.
They had the House, they had the Senate, and they had a bill.
And they had the president.
And they had a bill.
Who could now remember?
Not a very attractive bill.
He could not even convince his own party. Now, when you can't control your own party, neither you or the House of Representatives, you have all the power, yet you have none.
Well,
you have none.
Maybe we should close with Mark. If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. If the Republican Party is divided against itself, then that party cannot stand.
But unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we live in this kingdom. We are a part of the kingdom. We as citizens will be affected by the incompetence and the narcissistic attitude of this president. His inability to tell the truth. Our children are watching.
His inability to lead.
He has no leadership. What scares me now is that there is the possibility that we could get into another war. And I am afraid because of North Korea. I am very much afraid of what this president will do and what it will do to our children. My daughter is going into college and she wants to go into ROTC. Yeah. Now, it scares me to death to think that, she may go into a situation where she may have to go out and fight a whole nother war.
Well, and not just that, but a war that we will trip ourselves into because of the cavalier and just statements made.
It will hold this country into bankruptcy.
Off-the-cuff statements that our leadership, or should I say the 45th, oftentimes makes. Well, we've come to an end. Please remember to catch us not only on Facebook Live every Sunday at 3 o'clock, but join us on our Twitter page at Sisters in Law. Take a look at us on Instagram, and check out our YouTube channel at Sisters in Law.
And if you have information you want to give us so that we can have topics, www.sistersinlaw.com. Please join us. We thank you so much for being faithful watchers. We ask that you tell your friends and families, your co-workers, spread the news that this conversation cannot stop. It's just, we cannot stop because, you get tired of listening to the 45th and his lies, because it affects all of us.
And remember that your conversation probably had a lot to do with the fact that we still have Obamacare in this country.
Thank you, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Sisters and Law. Thank you very much.